Alright, today I wanted to ask you guys something. How often did you play Battlefront 2 in first person? Do you prefer first person? I personally mainly played in third, but when I felt like a change, would switch to first and it would feel like an entirely different game, which is pretty cool. But the reason I'm asking this is because recently EA have had quite a focus on first person shooters, with Apex Legends and the Battlefield series, and also Battlefront 1 and 2 being interchangeable. You could switch to first person. However, there's also been quite an absence of first-person Star Wars games over the past 10 or so years, and I don't think that's a coincidence. I think there's a reason for that. But back in the 90s, we had Star Wars Dark Forces and Dark Forces 2, both first-person, and in the 2000s, the classic Battlefronts you could play in either third or first, and there was also Jedi Academy and Outcast, which were the same, and probably the best first-person only Star Wars game, Republic Commando, that game where you play as droid-stabbing Bacta-addicts. Okay, but why am I talking about this today? Well, in the lead up to EA Play Live on July 22nd, EA are hosting a series of live streams called the Spotlight Series, revealing details about their upcoming games. And just today, they released the first of these, with a focus on the future of FPS. Now, during this, I'll just say Star Wars only got a very brief mention when DICE's general manager Oscar Gabrielson talked about the work they put into Star Wars Battlefront 2's live service. But there was some other information in here related to the future of EA's games in general and how EA are expanding their studios to push the boundaries of what's possible in gaming. The guys you're seeing here are some of the gaming industry's leading developers. This is Vince Zampella, founder of Respawn, the studio who built Jedi Fallen Order. He's also one of the original founders of Call of Duty, Medal of Honor, Titanfall, and Apex Legends. This is Chad Grenier, Apex Legends game director, and this is Christian Grass, DICE LA's manager, who for a long time have been a support studio for DICE in Stockholm, but are about to evolve into something much bigger, which I'll talk about in a sec. But who cares about any of this, right? Why is it important? It's all about the games, isn't it? Well, because of what their experience, what these guys' experience could bring to Star Wars gaming and what they're already doing behind the scenes, and because of what this newly rebranded EA studio could be working on behind the scenes. We've got some exciting stuff hopefully coming in just a couple weeks. Hey everyone, it's Andrew. With EA's experience in first-person shooters, you'd have to think that someday soon they'll consider making a first-person shooter set in the Star Wars galaxy. And I'm not talking about a single-player game like Republic Commando, I mean an all-out competitive multiplayer shooter, similar to Battlefront 2 in certain aspects, but also taking elements from the Battlefield and Call of Duty games. EA have so much experience in the first-person shooter genre, but is there a problem with making a first-person Star Wars game? Are Disney not going to be happy with this? Is the idea of a first-person shooter too violent for Disney? Well, there was actually a first-person shooter like this in development at LucasArts back in the early 2010s called Star Wars First Assault. Although that game was never released, it was cancelled after Disney started running the show as it didn't align with their current goals and plans for what they wanted to do with Star Wars. And they also, in some way, said it was too violent, and that's part of why it never released. You can watch this video for a lot more info on that game. But about the future of gaming from EA, one of the biggest takeaways from the live stream was the mention of cloud computing. It seems like DICE are looking into the possibilities of what cloud-based gaming could do in the future, as there's much more power in the cloud than even in next-gen consoles. Oscar talked a bit about this.
Cloud computing has really changed a bunch of other industries, and gaming kind of barely touched on it. So if you think about a game like Battlefield, we have things like AI in the game now, destruction, actually procedural level creation. And the next-gen consoles, there are, of course, super powerful, but if we move much of that logic out to the cloud, we can do some really high-scale computing that we haven't been able to do in the past. Destruction, visual fidelity, and then you'll see some pretty cool shooter games out there, I'd imagine, but we'll see. Soon trademark.
So to me, this sounds like EA and DICE are really interested in what the future holds for cloud-based gaming, and in just a few years' time, we could be seeing the release of several cloud-based games with graphical improvements and physics engines beyond what current PCs and consoles are capable of. For me, especially when you put this in the context of Star Wars and the fact EA have worked on Star Wars games and will continue to do so, is super exciting. It's a very loose statement, but I think the fact they're even looking into this is really important important for the future and how they're looking at evolving the company and evolving what's possible in gaming. So during the live stream, there was a heavy focus on Battlefield 2042, which DICE were working on behind the scenes at the same time they were delivering Battlefront 2's content updates, and how this game is taking Battlefield and first-person games to the next level. There was a lot of discussion on the scale of this game, the ability to have 128 players in the same server on the next-gen consoles, that the maps are bigger than ever before, the Levolution elements like tornadoes and other weather effects changing the layout and structure of the map mid-match, and environmental hints and elements. Crazy stuff, like if the trees start bending from the wind, it's time to start running because you're about to get caught in an incoming tornado. This is the kind of stuff we want to see evolved into a Star Wars game, implemented into a Star Wars game. DICE have always been at the forefront of evolving first-person shooters. Back in the day, in the Bad Company games, the environmental destruction was a huge deal and something that had never really been done before on this scale. And what I'm trying to say is they have the technology and the know-how, and now all we need to do is see them apply it to Star Wars. I'm a huge fan of what DICE did with Battlefront 2, bringing it back from the dead. With all the content updates, the Clone Wars, the amount of content in the game is ridiculous, but in terms of pushing the boundaries of gaming and creating an incredibly unique experience, I don't think that was really the objective with Battlefront. In a lot of ways, Battlefront was a fan service, trying to deliver content the fans wanted to see, and that's where the focus was, putting in the characters, the different hero appearances and skins and maps and you name it, but the game didn't do much in the way of innovative map design. There was no Levolution, as DICE have coined the term, which is what their Battlefield games are known for. It's the sandbox environment. It's what they can do within the world and how you can manipulate it as a player. You destroy this wall, you get in a vehicle, you drive to this location, you get out again. That freedom and player choice is what makes these games so unique, and Battlefront still lacks this, and that's something I think in the future, if DICE or another EA studio are working on a similar game like this, we'd want to see them develop and implement. Now, I'm sure you all know who DICE is, of course, but you might have also heard someone or myself talk about DICE LA. For a long time, DICE LA has been a support studio for the main DICE studio in Stockholm, Sweden. But early last year, DICE LA was taken over by Vince Zampella, the Respawn lead, the guy who introduced us to Jedi Fallen Order. And the studio has been going through a year-long rebrand. Just yesterday, they announced that the studio has been renamed to Ripple Effect Studios, and the studio is moving from working on Battlefield 2042 onto their own yet-to-be-announced project. They're leveling up, they're creating a larger studio, they're hiring staff, and it's going to be a much bigger deal than ever before. We're likely going to hear lots more about what their new game is or what the studio is planning at EA Play Live, but unless they're going to start developing a new IP and their own new title, I think it's very possible their new project could be Star Wars related. I keep mentioning this in nearly every video I make about EA and Star Wars, but EA's promise to double down on Star Wars games still stands, even though they're no longer the exclusive developers of Star Wars games. They are building and working on more Star Wars games and will be well into the future. As far as we know, even though they completely bungled Battlefront 2's release, Disney are pleased with their contribution to Star Wars gaming and the games that EA have put out. Jedi Fallen Order was the most critically successful Star Wars game in years, and we know there's another Fallen Order on the way from Respawn. They've been hiring stuff for their Star Wars team for ages, and the Battlefront games have also made EA and Disney millions. EA also proved their commitment to improving their games with Battlefront 2's updates and live service, transforming the game from the mess it was at launch into arguably the most well-rounded Star Wars game in existence. Which, if we take a look back, is actually similar to what DICE also did with Battlefield 4. Nowadays, you see nothing but appreciation of the game as a classic, that there's nothing like Battlefield 4. But when the game launched, it was completely broken. Multiplayer had so many issues, so DICE put in the work and brought the game back to life in the same way that they did to Battlefront 2 with content updates and DLC. So it's very safe to say that there are lots more Star Wars games coming from EA. So just going back for a second, Ripple Effect, like I mentioned, are on their way to becoming one of EA's biggest studios. The studio heads have talked about how the studio is trying to grow aggressively, hiring lots of new developers, moving to a new office in LA, and are planning on making the studio a place of industry-leading innovation. So with EA making this push to become something even bigger and evolve one of their studios into its own independent studio rather than just a support studio, we'll likely see several games released through Ripple Effect in the coming years, and hopefully there'll be some Star Wars involved there. It's just another possibility, another element element of where we could be seeing some Star Wars stuff coming out of. If they're leveling up and doubling down on Star Wars, this could be part of the plan. Now, one other interesting thing to take away from the live stream was Respawn's plans for developing the lore of Apex Legends. With each new character they introduce into the game, they release a backstory and add to the context of the universe, which started with the Titanfall games, the same universe. And I think this is really fascinating because it shows the studio's understanding of storytelling and how important this is in their games. I loved Jedi Fallen Order's world, the Easter eggs, the references, and the Star Wars lore created in Fallen Order I think is some of the best in years. I loved everything to do with the Zepho, the ancient civilization that's gone extinct and disappeared, but Cal is having these visions of them and trying to retrace what happened here. Everything to do with the holocrons and the Jedi, and Order 66 was epic. Respawn clearly have a great understanding of how to add to that, and it seems like with their idea of expanding the Titanfall and Apex universe into something much larger, I think they'll similarly do the same with Star Wars and Jedi Fallen Order 2. Big things coming here, and really looking forward to seeing where they take this game, if it'll be even about our good friend Calamari Kestis. So there are a few more of these EA Play Live Spotlight live streams coming up, but none of them have anything to do with Star Wars. I think one's about FIFA, there's a Madden one, and there's something else happening. But like I've been saying, I think EA have something big planned for Star Wars that they'll reveal at EA Play Live on July 22nd. But for now, they're just keeping quiet about it. They understand the importance of Star Wars, they understand the fan base and how passionate everyone is about Star Wars, so I think behind the scenes, something huge is brewing. But that's the day to look forward to, July 22nd. So in the meantime, I'd love to know if you'd want to play a Star Wars first-person shooter game. Is that the type of game you're hoping someone is working on, you're hoping will get in the coming years? And what do you think EA have planned for Ripple Effects Studios? Do you think they'll be working on something Star Wars related? Let me know in the comments. And for more on the latest Star Wars and Star Wars gaming, you can watch one of these videos here and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and join my Discord for lots more on everything you need in your life, mainly Star Wars related. And thanks for watching this. My name's Andrew. I'll catch you soon.
Stay bombastic.